Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Game Theory Podcast. This is episode 104, 104th episode, and we are joined today by a couple of game developers. This is something that our audience always loves whenever we bring on game developers, so we decided to continue that tradition. These two are Jason and Steven, and I'll allow them to introduce themselves.
I am Jason.
This is Steven. Both game developers here. D&D. Mainly.
So D&D, that's kind of your wheelhouse?
We started off with D&D. We did. We still went on to Pathfinder.
Yeah. Originally it was 3.5, and because of the way we built it up, specifically it's a class system called Rune Elementals, and originally we expanded upon what the 3.5 class system was capable of. And the power creep from that brought it up at a power level that was above the average 3.5 class, but on par with the average Pathfinder class. So we kind of migrated over to that Pathfinder system. And because they're so close to each other, it worked out.
Okay, so that's your elevator pitch for kind of how you got started into the business?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, great. So this game is called Rune Elementals, is that right? Or the system?
It's a class system. It's basically, if you were to look at psionics or clerics or whatnot, it's a whole separate thing unto itself. The general mechanics of it is as it developed over the past 6 years, we wanted it to be more and more fun. And anybody that's played some of the lengthier stuff in D&D, like Wizards or whatnot, the spells were a restriction in some way. And then you'd have per day powers, which were only so much fun. And we never really got into 4.0 ourselves. I know you guys were big into it. But so the way it worked out is we developed a kind of resource mechanic. And we used that mechanic to develop a specialized rune system that consists of elemental runes that power your basic abilities, and power runes that can be used for that as well, but they're more intended for generic, very powerful, one-off use abilities. The elemental runes would regenerate every few seconds, which is every round or so in combat, and the power runes would regenerate once a day. So, and as you level up, you gain more runes of each type, and then additionally, as we're actually developing 21 separate elementals. So these are 1 through 20 levels, classes, each one, that use those two rune mechanics for resources. And each one also has some type of tertiary resource as well that's unique to it. But every one of the elementals is unique in its development and how it plays out in its combat. One of the major things that we look to do is to make it very customizable. So we would take an element, for example, I'll use blood. For blood, we would take 2 different ability scores. For blood, we're using strength and constitution. And what we did was we would take it and make it so that for strength, you're focusing more on direct damage. Mm-hmm. The mechanics for blood allow it so that you can do damage to yourself to increase your damage output. And then you have other mechanics that increase your self-healing to make up for that self-damage. And your constitution lends towards that self-healing to make up for the damage. So as it plays out and you gain higher and higher levels, you choose one ability score over another, and it could play into a different type of playstyle. So you could go full strength and not worry about yourself, rely on the healer to keep yourself alive and just rip stuff apart. Or you could go more towards the constitution and rely on the self-healing, do less self-damage, and be more of a tank and protect your allies.
So there's a lot of flexibility even within every one of those 20 elementals?
Yeah, all 21, yes.
21, I'm sorry. Oh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so this is a class system, so we're talking like with psionics, you've got your psionics, you've got your psi-blade kind of things. There's different kinds of psionics, so there's different kinds of elemental users.
Well, it's basically, if you have psionics, these would be rune mechanics. So there is a psionic rune elemental, but that's just one. We go from all the basic elements of air, fire, water, earth. But we expand that to include stuff like lightning, metal, time is an element, arcane and divine, and its raw form, destiny. And so we really extrapolated some very unique things into it.
I wanted to expand upon the different varieties of elements to get more interest on more of the people might have interest in that specific thing, instead of just having a couple of elementals and kind of only being strictly with those.
Okay, so this is something that, we just got just a second to talk briefly before we went on air here, but you said you drew your inspiration from somewhere. Where was that?
Originally, when Wrath of the Lich King for WoW first launched, the original Death Knight concept, we wanted to bring that into 3.5. And from that point, we wanted to take it from just a Death Knight, because that's, RP-wise, it's limiting. So we wanted to reach out to, why don't we do other elements? Why don't we do other methods of acquiring power? And it just blew up and grew, and we've undergone many revisions since the beginning. Now it's almost unrecognizable from where we started.
Yeah, it used to be literally like a spitting image of practically the Death Knight on the World of Warcraft there, and we wanted to move on to something that's more unique and that we wanted to do our own.
So how does this, is it a rune knight? Did you say?
Rune elemental.
Rune elemental.
I know we changed it.
How does this measure up against the other classes? Does it step on anyone's toes, or is it overpowered or underpowered?
Well, yes and no. Honestly, versatility is what they're built for. They're designed in such a way that 3.5 was designed for multi-classing. A lot of people would pull from 4 or 5 different classes to make their own thing, and that's where this began. So there's still a little bit of that left, but for the most part, we've really isolated the classes to give them unique flavor, and multi-classing is something we're actually going to be completely removing and making it so that it can't be multi-classed. But I forgot your question.
Oh, is that a balance decision that you did for multi-classing?
Yeah, the balance.
Yes.
For balancing, it initially was an issue, and what we did was we went through and we've over the past years, it was very overpowered. If you measured it up to, like, say, a fighter or a wizard, head to head, it wasn't on par. And so we trimmed things and homogenized certain aspects of it, and we worked really hard to create subtle weaknesses within the classes as well. So we for example, at our current build, there are 3 runes that you get. You get 1 rune at level 1, 1 rune at level 3, and 1 rune at level 9. And these runes now regenerate every few seconds, every other round, based off of how you're spending your runes. In the past, it used to be you gained 1 rune every level. So you'd wind up with 20 runes, and you'd roll a d4 and regenerate it after that many rounds. So you could really do a lot of burst with that system.
Right.
So for trimming the resources and managing how they interact with one another, and especially the tertiary resources, which are sometimes cost for special abilities and whatnot that you have, it really brought it back down. Right now, I'd honestly say that if you took, let's say, a level 10 versus a level 10, level 10 rune elemental versus level 10 of a base class, there might be a slight edge, but it would be relatively balanced if they were both built by good builders, class builders or character builders, whatnot. But It's not until you have 2 to 3 to 4 rune elementals in a party that you'll actually see them start to overshadow the rest of the party that isn't a rune elemental, because at that point their slight advantage is starting to compensate for each other's slight disadvantages.
Right.
So generically, we'd say that you'd want 1, maybe 2 rune elementals in a party, and no more, or a party consisting of all rune elementals.
So you said you made it as an inspiration from sort of the Death Knight in WoW. Could you remake a Death Knight in like a WoW style Death Knight inside of your system?
No.
Not anymore. Maybe. What about in the beginning?
Well, originally yes. In fact, a lot of the abilities that we had were, we took for example, you'd have Howling Blast is an ability that Frost Death Knights have.
Mm-hmm.
We would take that ability and literally put it in there as a cone. Cone ability, whatnot. We ported everything straight from the game into it. But, like I said, we've revised and gone over it and made changes, and there are some homages that are left here and there that call back to it, but for the most part, it's completely unique now.
So what made you migrate away from the original vision of just transplanting this?
We wanted to do our own thing.
Oh.
We wanted to do more than what was there. We wanted to do greater and make it more dynamic and easier to access and more fun to play with. And one of the things that we really strive for over the years is to make it more dynamic compared to a standard class. I've even said that it's a step up above the standard D20 class. Because the way you have, for example, at level 1, you get your basic ability. You get what you call a path effect and a pact boon. The pact boon is a base mechanic that sticks with you throughout the whole class. The path effect is usually a debuff, unless you're in a healing aspect, then it would be a buff. Sometimes it's a hot or dot, which is a healing or damage over time effect. And then your level 1 ability. And your level 1 ability is what, in every class, a level 1 ability will apply it. Sometimes there's other abilities that will as well. But the level 1 ability will apply your path effect. And then certain abilities, called rune weapon strikes, which are your level 1, level 5, and level 10 abilities, they will gain a bonus for striking someone with your path effect. So the mechanic there is you hit once to apply, and then you can hit again for a bonus effect, or you can move to a different ability and hit for a bonus effect. But it creates a revolution of what you do as a player and how you approach the battlefield. You're not just thinking about, oh, I want to go hit this guy. You're thinking about, I want to hit this guy and then tag the other guy with this so that I can do that.
You kind of made it. It sounds like that you were looking to, or maybe this was a side effect, but you were looking to make it more interesting decisions in the moment. Like, sort of like if you played MOBAs of any kind, you can build a certain way in the middle of a combat. Were you trying to give more versatility there? So like, oh, I can pick which rune I activate, and that kind of thing.
Right. That's exactly it. I mean, it's personally, I've never played. Well, I've played a little bit of Heroes, but that's about it as far as MOBAs go. And that's arguable whether or not it's a MOBA.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's the system as a whole. If you look at one of the elements, at first you see you get something every single level, and at first it looks rather daunting until you kind of back off of it and you look at it at level 1, and you see what you get at level 1, and then once you play that level and you've gotten into it and you understand what you're working with and you level up, then you get your level 2, and that expands upon it. Now there are several different functions within it as far as mechanics that are shared across all of the elementals. One of the core ones is called a sustained rune. Now, by the time you hit level 18, you have 5 slots available, but you'll have 6 abilities. So you can. There's one ability that you won't be able to have active. They're kind of a passive ability that you can slot for yourself, and they might give you some other power, or they might augment a power. in some way. But the level 2, even though it's not required, it's usually one of the core mechanics of the class itself. So, so within the first 2 levels, you'll have all 4 of the base mechanics that will develop that character. Once you hit level 3, you just get your second rune, and once you hit level 4, you start on with the focus, and that's kind of a refinement of the class as you level up. And at that point in time, you're starting to gain ability points and extra feats, and then you can start to refine the direction that you want your character to go. So we really looked at it from a head-down or a top-down view for leveling and character advancement to make it simplistic on that level, whereas it still has a lot to it, but if you take it step by step, you're not going to be overwhelmed.
Right, it's like playing a class in an MMO. If you start at level 1, it's a lot less intimidating than just jumping in with a level 80 character. But I want to take it back a step for people who don't know a lot about the ins and outs of 3.5 or Pathfinder. And can you describe for us the development process as far as beta testing? Because a lot of game developers, that's the most resource-heavy part of a system, is trying to iron out the bugs, find out where the balance issues are. So how did you guys beta test your system?
It's still ongoing. Right now, we actually we're not done with all of our elementals. We've got, I'd say, probably a third of them are currently in beta, and a third of them are currently in alpha. Everything is on the website, though, so anybody's welcome to go through. It's runeelemental.com. But for the beta and the alpha testing, we've had a lot of play tests over the years. A lot of players on our homepage. We've got everybody that's ever played. We've got their characters listed, and wish it was more. But honestly, we would like people to go in. I mean, at this point in time, where I've been a GM for nearly every single one of these, and whether it was 3.5 or Pathfinder, I was GMing the game. And what I would really like to do, one of the reasons why I reached out to you guys, is because we want people to play it and give us feedback. Tell us, what needs to be changed, what doesn't, if they have ideas, whatnot. We honestly could use an additional developer just because of time. Stephen and I are both generally working 16 hours a day. We put a lot of time in. That's work, not on this. So this is.
Which is why it dragged on for so long, because it's just so hard, because it's only just the 2 of us, and we have a mixture of people coming in and trying to help us out, but it's mainly always just the 2 of us, and it's hard. But I mean, we made it happen. We've gotten really far. I mean, we're still in the process of doing, fixing the site and fixing the elementals and building upon them. The beta testing is happening in between as we're building it, and seeing what works, what doesn't work, what we exploit, and things like that. And it's a long, we're getting there, and it's actually looking pretty well.
And how would somebody, if they wanted to beta test, would they play it over Skype with you, or what's your medium for playing these games if they're not in the same city?
Honestly, we do a lot of our stuff with people that aren't around on Roll20. That's a good platform, but it's not mandatory they play with us. I'm actually currently in the process of working up a getting started with a picture by picture, an idea of how to develop a character page and character advancement and whatnot, just to give a rundown for people that are alien to Pathfinder or alien to the system, just trying to get into it and understand what's going on. I'm working on that at the moment, but we just got a new website, the runeelemental.com. It's a new website. We were at a different website before, so we're still updating and upgrading a few things on the website itself. So there are a few things missing out of the classes at the moment that we're trying to shore up and get done.
So eventually they could go to runeelemental.com, they could download the rules for the elemental they want to try, and they could bring that into their home game and then report probably to your forums with thoughts and feedback?
Yep, absolutely. We also have a contact us with a submission form. Anytime we do any kind of update, minor or large, doesn't matter, we've got a news section that we posted on. It could be, we put a news article when we changed the name of wind to air, the elemental. So everything we do, we update. and specifics too. So we'll go down and list the ability and how it changed for each of the elementals that would receive a change in that update. But there's nothing to download. It's all on the website. You just go to the runeelemental.com and you can navigate to whatever aspect you would like to look at.
We might change it and make it downloadable if that's what the fans would rather have.
Well, I was just thinking about something. I don't know if you guys ever played Edge of the Empire, the Star Wars role-playing game.
I've heard you guys talk about it on the
I particularly didn't, but
they did something that was genius as far as like developing systems, for tabletop games go. Man, remember that, David? They had this starter kit kind of thing, and I know this is a lot of work, And I hate to throw this on you. I was just putting this out there. We got people that have never touched RPGs to play. We had some girls over and had them play. Hard to see people like that at the girls that play RPGs, but I guess it's a little sexist, but I'm talking about demographics, because all we did was they gave them it's just basically a open up, what would you call that, David? Like a booklet, a pamphlet?
Yeah, a little pamphlet with an adventure, and then just some pre-made characters that kind of exemplify different things the system can do.
Yeah, and the cool thing is whenever so it's your character in the front, it's a big picture, right? It's not words or anything, it's just a picture. So anyone can get into that. There's nothing intimidating about it. You're like, oh, who do I want to pick? I can pick by picture, which, if you're not a gamer, or even if you're new to your system, you may just want to get the coolest looking one. I might want the blood one if he looks like a BA or something. And whereas, and then you open it, and it just gives you your basic abilities, right? And it kind of kept it simple. It simplified the system, but, it was doable. And then the next page was, it says, don't turn to the page. Don't look on the next page. And the next page was actually, when you level, it gives you just two simple things you can choose. But it really, lets you kind of cut your teeth on it, because it also gave you, an adventure, someone would GM. And it was just an excellent way to introduce a new system for us and for a whole group of people multiple times. I think that was really approachable. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
That's one of the reasons why I'm working on the Getting Started, honestly, is to help people get into it that are alien to it. But I did hear that specific podcast a couple days ago when I was going through your back catalog, actually. And you had her friend that was in the room wouldn't talk.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one of the girls.
Yeah, and your wife was on.
Hmm.
But, something like that. We've actually talked about doing a board game. We've got a lot of work done for it as well. I threw it together in a weekend, but there was a lot to it, and I know it just kind of rolled out of me. And there's a lot of similarities, but it was more of a battlefield control. You'd have two sides, and you're going at each other. We've got a lot of ideas for the system, down the road. We want to get the 21 elements done, and play tested and balanced as best we can. We've talked about leaving Pathfinder and creating our own system. We've talked about a lot of different ideas about what we want to do in the future.
That's interesting.
And what would be your advice to other budding game developers out there who might want to, sometimes you just want to tweak a class and then it spins out of control and pretty soon you're making your own system. What sort of advice would you give them?
Use your imagination and run.
It's pretty much. It's imagination and creativity. Be able to come up and create something out of the ordinary, unique to what they're interested in.
And perseverance too.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of people telling us we've been wasting our time, that nobody's ever going to like this stuff, and we're never going to make a penny on it. And to this day, almost 6 years now, we still haven't made a penny on it. But we've got ideas, and this is a platform. So even if this system remains free forever, there are other ideas that we want to take with it, different directions and avenues that could be very profitable.
In the beginning of being a developer, it's going to be a lot of time and a very rough start. And obviously, you're not making a penny on sometimes, and it just you draw upon on the interest on it, and you just take the time out, and it might take the 6 years that we have, and only because there's only two of us right now, and we're busy with real life too, and bit of work and whatnot, and so it's going to be a rough start, but if you have a vision in the future, it keeps you going.
So how's it that that I guess the development process moves forward? You ended up with 21 rune elementals. Is it just something that you somewhere along the way you just go, hey, what if we added this? Or is it, do you have like a plan in the beginning of a certain branching path, or how did that work?
It started off with the three. We had Blood, Frost, Unholy. That was what WoW had. So we went and said, you know what? Let's do our own thing. And my favorite element has always been lightning. Any character in any game that has lightning, I'll play it. So I added a lightning character in. I thought it was a good idea. Let's mess with time. So we devised a class that could, really, F with time. It has an ability called Unwind Effect, for example, so that if, let's say you're on the battlefield and this guy just rams a sword right through your chest and pulls it out, Unwind Event didn't happen.
And Prince of Persia, Sands of Time kind of thing.
Yeah, there you go. And I actually gave that one arcane spells. It has a modified reduced, only goes up to level 6 spells. But that was where things really started to go off in really weird directions. And Unholy actually got changed to Blight. And after that change, that's when we really decided, hey, this is different now. This is us. This is no longer Blizzard. So let's do what we want with it and just see what we can do. And from there it went to 7, it went to 13, then it went to 20, and it was at 20 for a very long time. And then Stephen and I were talking about different things we could do with the platform, the franchise. And what we decided, one of our ideas is like a mobile platform, eventually down the road for some type of mobile game, which would actually have 3 kingdoms within it, and you can't divide 20 by 3. So it went to 21.
Okay, who was the 21st knight that you added?
Metal.
Metal, yeah.
Oh, hey, Full Metal Alchemist?
More like the liquid metal guy from the second Terminator movie.
Oh, yeah, the
1000?
Yeah,
T-2000.
I think the one of the most interesting things that you've mentioned was I like that you guys are thinking outside the box, because instantly as soon as you said messing with time, and there was another one you said right before that when you first introduced them. I suppose you recall. It was a weird one. Do you remember?
Blood? Or
Yeah, it was Blood, and I remember thinking, that's something that I've never seen before. Like I may have seen like a, because we played some homebrewed stuff. I made a Death Knight myself in my campaign, not as a class. I didn't balance it. He was obviously overpowered as hell because he was a bad guy. But I was just like, let's say he does this thing. I don't know, opens a rift in the ground and the hell screams out of it. Standard balance stuff. But I guess the thing that was interesting was I'd never thought about someone who like this class that kind of revolves around time, other than Final Fantasy Tactics, which was my original, those Chrono Mages or the Time Mages. So I like that. I do like that you guys stepped out of the box, and I think that adds an inherent appeal to it.
Yeah, I mean, each one of the elements it's not only unique in the way it approaches the elemental control, but every one of them has a unique, like a tertiary resource. We do have an arcane elemental, for example. The arcane elemental, while he is kind of like a sorcerer, he's something more. He's got the full level 9 spells, whatnot. And I kind of borrowed inspiration of him from the Archmagus from 3.5. The concept of taking a spell and dissolving it into raw power and just blasting the crap out of somebody. And so a lot of their mechanics work off of that, where you're spontaneous and you've got spells per day and whatnot, so you can sacrifice a spell slot and then boost something else as well. But the way they work, they can also use their own health and sap their own life energy to increase the power of whatever spells they're casting. They also they've got a lot of metamagic play as well, and there's a couple of metamagics that are actually built into the class, so you don't even have to take the feats.
So something that I think is attractive about this system is that, one, diversity. Like I love the idea of more than you get to a spot where you've kind of tried everything. That's why I like games now. Honestly, free to play when it first came out, I was like, this sucks. But now I kind of like the model in the sense that like they inject fresh blood every now and then, and it keeps things interesting because there's new interactions to be had. I don't have a extensive background in any other I would say MOBA, but like you said, here's a little different. But when they add someone in, I'm like, whoa, how is Arthas going to fight, this guy? How is he going to pair up against this? It's those interactions that keep it interesting. So I think by adding in a lot of new characters like this, it would be, because like let's say you get a traditional like shaman or something, and then he's fighting like this arcane elemental, then it's like, how is that going to work? Or just a traditional mage versus one of these guys. I think it would be. Those are fun interactions that I would like to play out.
Yeah, we also wanted to on top of being diverse and a lot of different ways, and a lot of the classes are very versatile. So we used to have them very strict to specific things, and I don't like being restricted to certain things, and it drove me nuts. So I was like, we need to have. Not everybody likes that either. So we everything is versatile and different ways to play the class. Not every one of them specifically melee or specifically ranged, and you can play them either way. Some of them lean more towards one side or the other, but it doesn't mean you have to be that way.
I like that.
Yeah, and actually, when Jason was explaining, he likes lightning element. Me, I don't have a particular element. I'm a tank class. I like being up front. Being a big dude. And, so we originally had the stone element, and normally you would think stone as the traditional big stone golem or whatever the case may be, and that's what we originally thought. We were going to do dual shields and big dude, and then when we started working on him, we actually made him completely different, not even anywhere near traditional stone. Now we were basing the runes off of his armor, and we based off his armor as in it basically you can transform his armor to different types, whether it's more for tankish, more for being more reduction into spells, more reduction into physical attacks, and now he's a lot more versatile depending on what armor he transforms into. But it's all stone. But it's nowhere near like a normal stone dude you would think of, but he still can tank, and he's made for tank.
I think some of the coolest parts that I've had playing these third-party system or homebrew and other people's examples is like this new approach to the game or a new thought on a series. Like whenever it's like a straight up I don't know, I'll try to think of some example, like Fire Mage, that's been done a ton of times.
Yeah.
But when somebody thinks of a new way to do it, where like maybe you conjure a spirit and it's like a flying fire dragon, and you're like, oh, that's a cool new way to approach it. I think that adds inherent draw too, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of the strengths I think of tabletop games is that if you want to mod a game like Warcraft 3 and you really know what you're doing, you could eventually make Dota. But a lot of people don't. There's a barrier to entry there because you don't know how to program. You can't really mod. But if you are doing a tabletop game, it seems almost more open to the people. Like it's a more democratic approach to modding because all you need is an understanding of that system. You don't need a programming knowledge or the ability to do computer animation. Like it's just everybody can bring their idea to the table, and then the good stuff floats to the top.
Exactly.
And like balance, for example, Stone is very versatile as a defender. They've got anti-magic capabilities. They've got the ability to transform themselves into a giant mech. They've got a lot of flexibility with the armor. The concept that we came up with it is normally the runes are engraved on the weapon, but for Stone it was on the armor. And basically what happens is your armor literally breaks apart and reforms in different shapes for you. Mm. And a way to balance that so you can't immediately jump to, let's say you're facing a magic user and a fighter, so that you can't just be ready for both at the same time, we have a tertiary resource for them called Pact of the Earth. That's your Pact Boon. And you have to build up stacks of Pact of the Earth, and then you spend them to change the armor format.
Cool.
So that's how, for example, on the whole, without that, if it was just able to switch whenever you wanted, that would be way overpowered compared to a Pathfinder or D&D class. But by putting that weakness, that relying on a resource in there, and managing the rate at which the resource is acquired, that brings the balance more in line.
So how is it that you guys do balance these things? Let's say you've got this, rock rune knight, or not rune knight. I keep saying rune knight because I'm thinking death knight, rune elemental. Then how is it that you go balancing that? Let's say you got your first build 1.0. Here it comes, rock elemental, go. What is it? How do you approach that?
We typically what we've done in the past is we'll lean heavy on our friends that we find. We've found a lot of friends that are really good for class building and class breaking. We tell them to break it, and we fix the holes.
Yeah, we've got a friend like that, Tim. This guy made a ninja. What was he? A ninja Kinsai monk with 2 hands that had flaming weapons. And pretty soon, I was a wizard, and I blasted someone with my pretty much the highest level spell. I blasted him, threw all these dice on the table, and crossed my arms, and I was like, wizard, yeah. And then he came in the next round, and he did the same thing twice, and then he was like, I do that every round. And we were like, you need to work for wizards. Yeah, I'm sick of you. But yeah, we all have those friends, I think. So have you guys been gaming friends for a while, or did you meet over this system?
We actually, originally, his brother, Matthew, had a guild in World of Warcraft, and I transferred servers. I wound up being part of the guild, and Steven and I didn't really, we talked a couple times, but we never really met. His other brother, Michael, has a business, and I moved from Virginia to Florida, where he used to live, and started doing some things with the business, and that's how Steven and I met, and we met. There was another guy named Derek, and Max as well. Those two were a big help with the initial setup and how we began.
Yeah, we all literally sat in a steak and shake and just
nice.
Things down and stuff right now and come up with the ideas. And it was way back a long time ago. But, yeah.
A lot of 4 a.m.s.
Yeah.
Someone home. And, now we both work for his brothers, so, it's, our lives have gone heavy for work, and it hasn't left us a lot of time for the game as far as building up the real elementals. That's why we really would like to find another developer that's willing to that has the passion for it that we have developed, or that can develop that passion, and is on board, would like to develop this and see what we can do with it. I mean, we're always open to new ideas. We take criticism in every form.
Oh, cool. So what kind of qualities would you be looking for in a third developer?
Basic understanding of D&D as far as Pathfinder 3.5 in general, and an imagination.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah,
Yep.
Pretty much.
Cool.
Really, everybody's different. Everybody has, I like shooting with a bow. I like hitting somebody with a sword. I like smacking people with a hammer. Everybody has their own ideas about what they like doing. And we tried very hard to diversify what can be done with the elemental while still reining in like a theme for each one. Originally, we started off with, for example, going back to the older days, every one of them had a specific weapon that they were bound to. So Blood had they were two-handed, and Fire was kind of like a monk, for example. And even though they no longer are bound to that, they still have that theme. And so, Fire is now light and nimble, but you can use a new weapon. You could be ranged with it if you really wanted to. Whereas, Blood is built for getting up there and getting in people's face and just ripping them apart. But it is designed in a way that if you were using, for example, a compound bow, you could still do some pretty nasty damage with it. So that versatility between the elements, trying to open up avenues for any player to jump into any element and kind of tweak it to fit them. We want somebody to join us that it can say, hey, I really love this, but I imagine other people loving it in this manner.
Right. More points of view. Different ideas. So how would people contact you if you've got the website, runeelemental.com? Is that the best way to get a hold of you if they want to play test or apply to become a developer?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we've got a on the website. We've got a banner at the end that says community. We've got forums there. We've got a forum where you can contact us. You like I said, you can homebrew this. You can go play this in your own campaigns. You don't have to play with us. We're going to be setting up. Everything okay?
Sorry, I drop off occasionally.
That's okay. I've got a really big campaign coming up. Probably starting in January. I'm going to be doing a 20+ level. Probably going to take over a year to play, like serious campaign based off of Deathgate Cycle, which is the series that was written by Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. They did Dragonlance.
Mm-hmm.
Deathgate Cycle is one of the series that they did that's less well known, but it's still epic. So I'll be starting that in January, and we could use a player or two when it comes to that. We got a couple going into it. But in general, as far as communication, the forums, we're probably going to be revamping the forums, working on those. But we do have a contact us under the community tab, and just shoot us a line. We'll talk back.
As for the development, me and Jason here, we also mix very well because, as I was saying before, I'm a tank. So I'm highly a melee person. I love melee. I don't really like doing range. So he's kind of like in the spells or range as opposed to me being melee. So it helps a lot. And even though I have a high interest in melee, it doesn't mean that I can come up with ideas for range either. So we have a mindset to where we have our interest in specific things, but we still can come up with ideas for others, and not also come up with things that are too overpowering. There are some people that just can't get their mind off of something being so OP, and you have to really want to think balance too when we're trying to come up with the ideas that we make. There was a couple of friends we had that come up with an idea, but it's so OP, and they just couldn't get their mind off of not wanting to make it OP because they thought it was so cool,
Yeah.
So, but
But saying, yeah, you're right. It's hard to disseminate that, to break it down into its constituents and say what part of that ability can we use and what part of it do we need to get rid of. For example, if you hit somebody and you stun them for 3 rounds, by game mechanics, if they're stunned or paralyzed, you can pretty much coup de grace them. And that's really easy to do. It's not so much fun. So maybe you only dazzle them and reduce what they can do instead. It really comes down to figuring out how best to make an ability. I mean, you can come up with anything. You can say, I poke him in his eye. As long as it comes down to working it into the game in a way that makes it fun and interactive without making it so overpowered that it's something you'll do constantly. With those types of abilities, we really tried hard to find situational uses so that in one situation it would be awesome, but in another situation it would be detrimental. And that's another area where we tried to simplify things as well, because there is a lot to the classes. And if you let things get carried away, you could have a lot of tracking as far as numbers to go. For example, your path effect, they're duration bound. So if you have 10 enemies all with your path effect and they all have different durations, that's a lot to keep track of. So we've got alternate mechanics in place that where you could say, hey, no matter how many have my path effect is on the same round for every one of them. Things like that.
Okay. Huh. Okay. Well, I guess, I could go on for a while. We love ourselves some tabletop games, but I know we have to wrap up at some point. We're about at the time. So, any closing thoughts or, any ways to pitch your system or, I don't know, any last hurrahs?
Go to runeelemental.com. Sign up.
We're looking for some people to do some beta testing, whether it's on their own or with us, or it definitely needs to be. We want to get it, we want to get it rolling and get it worked out because we're excited because we're getting close to that point, and so yeah, we're even a developer.
Yeah, even if you take a look at it and you can't really see yourself playing it, or you don't see yourself you don't see yourself as a playtester, you don't see yourself having a group that you can play with, but you see some problems, or you have some ideas, hit us with a contact, because perfect example, I was pitching around on the Roll20 forums trying to grab people for a preemptive Chrono Trigger campaign that I was setting up, and I got a guy who was vitriolic as all hell. I mean, he was horrible. But
on forums?
Well,
I'm just kidding.
No. Well, no, I mean, we brought him into Skype, and he was looking over the Rune Elemental. He was interested in the Chrono Trigger campaign, less in the playtesting aspects. So when he looked at it, and he was trying to see what he would like to do. Light, for example, our Light Rune Elemental is based off of. He focuses heavily on anti-undead or healing and shielding. Like, we've developed a mechanic of actually creating absorption shields out of temporary hit points. And he saw the way it was originally written, and he saw problems with it. It didn't account for damage over time effects and other things like that. Periodic damage, AoE damage, those weren't accounted for in the way it was written. And he went off on me over it, and rage quit. But he was right, and I made changes to adjust for that. So if take a look at it. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's great too. Just let us know. Tell us what you don't like about it. If there's a mechanic, if there's too much there, if you have an idea to streamline stuff, just let us know.
Open to anything.
Yeah.
All the ideas that anybody has. Because I'm actually mainly the website builder. I've been working on this along with him, and it just need those ideas and to change things, whether it's not in the class, even on the website itself. It's just would like to have those ideas and open to really anything. We like to have any kind of idea or something at us so we can kind of pinpoint this to where it's very streamlined.
Great. Well, it looks like Jeremiah's having a few more internet problems again, so I'll take this home. Once again, that website, if you want to learn more about Rune Elementals, you can check them out at runeelemental.com. They've got I'm looking at the site now. It's pretty. It's got a lot of cool graphics and concept art, so you can check that stuff out. You can learn more about Jason and Steven's project, and you can contact them. All of that's on runeelemental.com. So until next time, this is David and Jeremiah with Jason and Steven, and we will see you next time on the Game Theory Podcast. Okay, I think that it's about to drop off the air because he lost his internet again, but hopefully we'll have the whole sound file from that, so we should be getting that edited and up on Sunday. So thanks, guys.
Yep, thank you.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I guess it just stopped. This would be a weird broadcast.